treatment planning system. I'm Breen. I'm the head of the physics department, and it's my pleasure to speak to you today along with Dr. Beibei Zhang, who is leading this project. I'll present a few slides about how we came to be here on the imminently getting a new radiotherapy treatment planning system and what the implications are for the program. And then Beibei will go through and present the future state that we can look forward to once we get our new planning and system in place over the next couple of years. So some of you may have seen about 3 weeks ago this news announcement about purchase of a new treatment planning system by us. This was a culmination, as I'll show, of about 4 years of work by a number of us in the program. You can see this comes along with a big price tag of 51 million Swedish kroners. I learned a lot about the business securities governance in the Nordic countries on this, because Research, the vendor, was really worried that as soon as we sign a contract, that word gets out about this big purchase. So this was the news release for the whole world on the Research website for their securities regulators. And today, Beibei and I will tell you about what's going to happen in the next few years in our program. So in this transition to a new treatment planning system, we have a number of goals. We put those goals in the context of a project charter, which when we start working with RayStation more closely about the implementation, we'll share that project charter with everybody. But the main goals of this project are, first of all, to implement a new treatment planning system. That this implementation is the biggest thing a radiation treatment program can do altogether. So this is an enormous project. We're going to leverage that opportunity to redefine and redesign our treatment planning process. The process we have now is based on other software with different context, different approaches, and as inevitably happens in a lot of complicated systems, has become a bit of a patchwork in how we approach things. And I think we can start from sort of a blank slate in the new treatment planning system and build some improvements into how we all work together. Of course, there will be unique capabilities in the new treatment planning system, and we'll talk about that as the session goes on today, but we want to maximize our use of all those features. We spent those 50 million Swedish kroners, and we intend to get our money's worth out of every one of them. The radiotherapy world has entered the world of adaptive radiotherapy. I'll define that in a few slides, but our current treatment planning system, Pinnacle, which has served us well for a number of years, is not able to accomplish adaptive radiotherapy in the way we want. So we need a new platform to do that. And coloring these four main goals is the idea that we want to take a modern approach to quality, follow this modern definition, is that we want to be on target with minimum variation. Now, our target will be our treatment planning protocols, which the disease site groups ultimately will design, but we want to reduce the variation between plans made for the same types of patients. So a lot of the conversations we will have over the next few years about the new planning system will be colored very strongly by this idea of minimizing variation in what we do. So I'm going to take a moment to give a little history lesson on treatment planning. So this is what we get to do every day for all our patients. We make a model of the patient, and back when the Odette, Toronto Bayview Cancer Center was founded 30 years ago-ish, this was the state of the art. We had simulators, so same geometry as a LINAC, and we had two-dimensional images, and we had bits of lead wire to isolate target volumes. Physicists undertook dose calculation along with radiotherapists based on sort of corrective techniques where we had standard setups that we could replicate on the treatment machine for very standardized conditions. And then we would add a number of corrections to the dose distribution to account for actually having a real patient that wasn't a block of solid water, and accounting for accessories on the machine and the treatment approach. And lastly, we would treat on devices just like this Siemens Primus. So we do the same thing nowadays in terms of making a model, calculating dose, and treating the patient, but we have a lot of better technology. Here at the Odette, we have enormous resources for imaging in MR and CT. So we make a model of the patient, but we're starting from a volumetric image. A modern, Pinnacle was a modern treatment planning system and a market leader in treatment planning for many years. And with that, we could make three-dimensional models of the patient. So we escaped the realm of the constraints of the two-dimensional world and moved into the third dimension in creating models of our patient. These slides just show the fact that we can use multimodality images, and we can identify through automated or human means target volumes and normal anatomy. Our ability to calculate dose has improved from those corrective models. So the reason why Pinnacle was such a good choice as a planning system for so many years is because it was the first into the market with a convolution superposition dose calculation algorithm. So this was state of the art and remains a very popular and effective way to calculate dose in a patient. And with a modern planning system, we can visualize that dose in 3 dimensions. And now the big revolution in the last 15 years that we've seen is that when we're treating the patient, we are able to get volumetric images at the time of treatment or just before treatment to localize the patient and match as best we can the position of the patient on the treatment unit to their position at the time of simulation. So the part that we're really interested today is everything in the red box, which constitutes what's in our new treatment planning system. Before we get to the new planning system, though, I want to talk a little bit about building this platform for adaptive radiotherapy. So our current model of radiation treatment is that we have a single plan made before the patient starts treatment based on some images. And then you make a treatment plan and a dose distribution, and we apply that through all fractions on the assumption that the patient doesn't change. Well, all of us know patients change over the course of radiotherapy, and we do make some adjustments. They're ad hoc, they're responses to changes that we observe either on the treatment machine when the radiotherapists are with the patient or in clinic. But what we want to do is move into an era where instead of just looking for those clinical indicators of a need for a new plan, that we take a more proactive approach. This may mean at certain intervals, getting more imaging or having a protocol that includes getting new images and making a treatment plan. So an adaptive model is more about monitoring than waiting for ad hoc signals. And one important element of this will be our ability to add radiation doses for, say, in this case, these 3 different treatment plans and get an even better approximation of what the dose, how we accumulate dose in the patient. For the technically minded and the systems thinkers in the crowd, I want to speak to how all this looks from a systems design point of view. And this is probably the first good approximation I've showed in these slides about what we just purchased. So I spoke in the first couple of slides about how we build a model of the patient with CT and MR. And in the planning system, we will get new tools for managing and aligning images and new tools for contouring or automatic segmentation. The radiation dose distribution has an algorithm for that. We have so a dose calculation algorithm, an optimization algorithm for IMRT and VMAT type deliveries, and the product of that is a treatment plan, which we send to our radiation oncology information system, which is Mosaic. So Mosaic will stay part of our program for the foreseeable future. Mosaic controls the LINAC in addition to managing the patient schedule at the treatment unit and controlling the online imaging system. So our treatment plan that's generated in the planning system makes it through Mosaic over to the treatment unit, where in most cases we apply or acquire a daily cone beam. Now the errors start to flow back in another direction. So from an engineering point of view, we get an interesting feedback loop here where now we have some images that we can use to adapt or change radiotherapy based on those observations. So in the adaptive planning system, we need advanced image management tools because we can't afford to have the wrong image at the wrong day. Deformable image registration is fundamental to that, as is dose accumulation, adding up the dose from a number of fractions to get a better and more realistic approximation of what's been delivered to the patient. And then we can make a decision about whether to go back and develop a new plan. So this is, like I say, from a systems point of view, what an adaptive treatment planning system is. In the last 2 years, the pace of change on our infrastructure has really sped up. So I just want to show this big cartoon of the plans that are underway and how things will look in 2024. I mentioned we have great support for imaging, for treatment planning, and particularly on the right side of this figure, we have a new addition coming in. Probably construction starts in January of half-T head-only MR sim. It's by a company called Synaptive, and the MR model is called the Every. So that'll be an addition to our program. At the bottom of the screen now, you see all our LINACs. So Unit 3 to Unit 14, we're mostly all familiar with. So those are our existing Electa machines, with the exceptions of Units 8 and 10. And those will be replaced in around 2023 or late 2023, early 2024, with new Varian high energy machines. And Units 1 and 2 are the Halcyon machines that will be placed in November of this year. So that project is coming to fruition finally. We have a huge operation here. So our primary treatment planning system historically has been Pinnacle since, I believe, 2006. And this is where, right in the middle of the program, where we are making this enormous change. There are other elements of our program that will be less effective. So the MRL will continue to operate with Electa Monaco as the planning system, because it implicitly takes into account the magnetic field from the MR. Gamma Plan will continue to sit off on its own as the only treatment unit down in PB. And the new Halcyon machines, to take advantage of their full treatment capabilities, use Varian's planning system called Eclipse, and use Varian's radiation oncology information system, ARIA. So those red marks are really the anomalous parts of our program. So we have this enormous program with, unfortunately, in the future, we'll have 4 treatment planning systems, which means more management. So you have to take that into consideration as we are treating our patients and manage this whole system. But the important thing to note on this slide is that we have an enormously high volume program that we will transfer to our Ray Station system in the next 2 years. One of the main motivations for this project is that Philips Pinnacle is at the end of life. It came into being in about 1992 at the University of Wisconsin, where my daughter goes to school now, and was bought out ultimately by Philips. Philips hired some computer programmers and some mathematical optimizers from a company called Research to develop all the optimization tools in Pinnacle. And those engineers and computer scientists moved on to develop their own planning system that came to the market in 2009. So Pinnacle, as a product, is at its end of life in December for this year. We've been working with Philips to have service available to us for another year, but we've done a risk assessment to see what the implications of that are. So we're confident we're in good shape to have Philips Pinnacle with us during the transition to Ray Station. But a big driver for this project is the fact that Philips is abandoning Pinnacle. They're collaborating with Electa in a way that's not clear to us now about a new treatment planning system, but it was time to leave that platform. So as I said earlier, this will be our platform for adaptive radiotherapy on a big scale. We will be redesigning the treatment planning process to take advantage of the new tools and all the advantages that Ray Station will bring us. It'll be underlined by improvements to patient care and patient safety for all our disease sites. And one of the things that this makes this a good investment is that it will be an attractor for retaining and recruiting staff with a modern treatment planning system. This project really started about 4 years ago, where we recognized the need to modernize our treatment planning system. And we first posed that question: is the existing planning system viable? The answer came out to be no. Concurrently, we did a market survey and looked at what was available on the market, and at the same time gave a lot of thought to our own program's requirements. Of course, one of the most important things to consider in a project of this magnitude is where will the money come from. So Cancer Care Ontario had put a moratorium on funding for new treatment planning systems around this time. So we weren't sure where the money was going to come from. But Arjun Sehgal helped an enormous amount by identifying donors and working with the foundation to raise the capital for this project. That meant concurrently, what happened was Cancer Care Ontario developed a new way to buy capital equipment, our Linacs and CTs and MRs, and their planning systems. So we had to figure out the implications of how we would purchase in this new era. This, as the RayStation press announcement says, is the first planning system purchase under these agreements. We proposed a business case to the senior leadership team and got approval in February of this year. In March, we had to develop a secondary sourcing project. So essentially, CCO gave us a list of planning systems from which we could choose, and then we had to develop a process to select the best one for us. So a team of us did that in April, and in June this year, we identified a successful proponent, following which we developed a purchasing and licensing agreement with our procurer, that is Plexus, and we signed off on that agreement on September 6th, which brings us to today. One of the things we did in that request for proposals was try to be very creative and rely on the vendors to generate a good solution for us. We are an enormously successful treatment program. We treat a lot of patients. So we supplied all the vendors with information like this, showing how many, the numbers of patients, the disease sites, and what our infrastructure was. And the most important people of all, our staff, how we would use the planning system on a day-to-day basis. So we sent that off as in a request, something like a request for proposals. We received 3 proposals. They were rated by five raters, 3 physicists, 1 oncologist, and 1 radiotherapist. And we rated on 20 criteria that we weighted. We skewed the weights heavily towards the adaptive infrastructure. And we scored on, actually, I think it's gave them scores between 1 and 5. And it's as simple as once you sum all the scores, the highest score wins, and RayStation won. So that's how we came to have a purchase agreement, and we have started accepting products from RayStation, and we will soon start to begin to build our plan with them on the next steps we will take. Concurrent with that, in the physics department, in consultation with oncology and therapy, we've worked on our project charter, and this is our guidebook or our plan for the implementation of the new treatment planning system. It's strongly aligned with the hospital's mission statement. We will certainly be innovating in our work. We will enable the patient experience, reducing planning time. Just the new planning system is GPU-based technology, so we'll be able to plan treatments with up-to-date computer technology and high-speed computer technology now with the GPUs. And I think for me, the best part of this planning system is the engagement that's going to happen between everybody involved in treating patients with radiation. This is, again, just to reiterate, an enormous project, and the cooperation that we'll develop between all these teams as we develop protocols and develop the best ways to treat our patients is going to be very, very exciting for all of us. So ultimately, we'll end up with an economic, data-driven, highly automated process for radiotherapy. And I say economic because I don't like using the word efficiency, because as I've said to a couple of colleagues here, I never know what the denominator is. but I think means we will have high value in the add value to the work we do for our patients. You'll see on the next, excuse me, the next slide, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on developing expertise amongst our staff. The approach to the project is aligned with good systems thinking, process design, and ergonomics to get the best use of this product for us to meet our needs. We want to minimize variation in how we plan so that similar patients are always treated the same way. It's better quality. We'll have a new approach for the use of scripts and templates, where we'll use modern management techniques to govern the software associated with that, the in-house software. We will have to develop a new nomenclature system, not just for contours, but also for images and treatment plans. And particularly if you imagine in the adaptive era where a patient may have 2 or 3 or 4 treatment plans, we have to have an agreed way to identify those plans for safety purposes. And physics, of course, does quality control measurements on plans. We want to reduce the number of plans that we measure, and we have to include considerations for that in our approach for doing this. So I'm going to give a very generic timeline for the project, just so everybody knows what we're looking at in the next 2 years. As I say, we are starting to take some software. Hardware will come in a few weeks. We'll have our IT team install the system. The first part is sort of a backroom approach, physics configuration and commissioning, and then we will concurrently work on training for everybody over an extended period. We'll work on generic protocol development, and finally look towards disease site group implementation in a uniform way. And the 2 milestones to keep in mind are the first race station patient and the last Pinnacle patient. That will happen, and I hope this will all be sewn up in 2 years. So I mentioned we develop a project charter. When we finalize it in the next few weeks, we'll be happy to share that with us. But before I hand the screen over to Beibei, I just want to say that I think we've made an excellent choice. We have the right planning system. We've worked a lot on the project charter, so we have the right project plan. And most important of all, we have the right people in our program, all the oncologists, the therapists, the planners, the physicists, the physics associate, that enormous team. All of us will be involved in this project. And I can't wait to get started to work with all of you on this. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Beibei, who is the project lead for this and will tell us what our future state is going to be with the new planning system.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see my slides? Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for attending the round today. So before I start, I just want to say I have no conflict of interest, and the system is currently purchased but has not been installed or functional clearly. So I would like to acknowledge the vendor for providing customized slides according to my numerous requests. So so Stephen has spoken about sort of the high level picture of what this looks like, and I'm hoping to go into a little bit more technical detail, not too much considering the crowd today, and sort of to speak to some of the things that we can expect to see in the new system or the implementation of the new system. And I think I'm also hoping to also speak a little bit about the change that we can expect and how we're going to go about that, and including the project implementation structure. So so what does the future look like? So I think we're confident that this system features a cutting edge technology, and it's featuring the cutting edge technology as of the market right now, but it's also very forward thinking in terms of the future. It will enable us to make better treatment plans, so for our patients. And on top of that, we will be able to generate plans more efficiently. I know Stephen just said that he doesn't like the word efficient, but anyway. So to give you some ideas or give you some ballpark numbers, the vendors always like to kind of give you, their best best typical example of the numbers that they can give you. I think I'm going to give you some ballpark numbers because these things will depend on a lot of factors. But depending on the complexity and dose grid resolution, for those of you who know, the IMRT or the intensity modulated radiotherapy plans can be generated in under 1 minute. And that includes both the plan optimization and the dose calculation. So you'll have a plan ready in under 1 minute. And for VMAT plans, again, depending on the number of arcs that you have, depending on the dose grid resolution, the VMAT plans can be generated in 1 to 2 minutes. So that gives us basically two things. So first of all, number one is we'll be able to knock off the simple plans much faster, and it'll give us more time to basically spend on the more complex cases. And the second thing is for the complex cases, we're not going to be bound by the limitations that is set by our current system. We've all been there, I think, in situations that we would like to run a couple more optimizations just to try a couple of things out to maybe improve things. But sometimes we're just really limited by your timeline, and this will no longer be the issue. We will be able to take automation to a new level. And the system itself features some automated planning for breast radiotherapy, but it also has, like you mentioned, scripting functions and other ways for us to automate, which we're currently doing in Pinnacle, but this will, I think, take us to a different level. We will employ standardized and streamlined approach in the new implementation of the new system. And as sort of Stephen already alluded to, that we're going to be able to not only look at the planned dose, which is currently what we look at, but also be able to estimate the actual delivered dose, which is called reconstructing dose for each fraction of the treatment. And after that, we'll be able to basically sum them together. We'll be able to sum the delivered dose together, or the terminology is called the dose accumulation. And having all those information will help us with a data-informed systematic approach in adapting plans. It's not going to be a simple thing. It's not going to be just click a button, but we will develop, what we would like to do is to develop a systematic approach into consistently performing plan adaptation. And like Stephen said before, throughout this project, the overarching theme is really the renewed emphasis on radiation quality. So in the next about a dozen slides, I will touch upon all of these points. So first, I would kind of like to talk about the product a little bit. And to speak about sort of my experience a little bit. So as Stephen mentioned, the product came to the market in 2009. So in fact, the optimization engine that's currently used in Pinnacle is written by research laboratories. So every time you launch Pinnacle, you would have actually seen this logo already, because every single plan that uses optimization uses their optimization engine. However, they've gone off and developed their own system and improved the optimization algorithm significantly since then. And so I first started using the RayStation system in 2012, and you can see at that time there were fewer than 50 centers using this platform, this system. It was already strong in technology in many ways, but it was certainly still in their early stages of development in terms of their product. So I think through the years, they have definitely listened to the customer feedback in improving the product in usability and practicality in radiotherapy. And as a result, I think they have seen a rapid increase in the uptake around the world of the RayStation platform. So I think where we're at right now, we are really at the sweet spot. We're not the most early adopters of the product. However, the product has become much more mature and much more usable. And at the same time, they're still developing lots and lots of new features. So I think we're going to really reap a lot of benefit in terms of our timing. So from the next few slides, I would just like to go through, I think, some features that I think that as users we really like to have, or we had really wanted for a really long time, and we just didn't have it. And then I would also like to sort of look at some features that that is new, that is really, I think, will kind of be a bit of an eye-opening thing. So first is, such a simple thing. It's a searchable database. So we will be able to type into the patient's name or MRN, whichever it is. We will be able to type in there, and then we will be able to find the case, find the patient plan easily. It sounds like it's such a simple thing, but if you are a Pinnacle user, you know that is not such a simple thing in Pinnacle, and we would no longer need to go into the monthly database or which month does this go to and all that stuff. Everything will be it will be all searchable, and it's much easier to use. And I think that's definitely a function that is overdue. And then something that comes with it as well, before I go on to DICOM, is that it will also have a undo and redo button, which I think all of us, a lot of us have wanted for a really long time. So you will be able to use those. So do undo and undo basically up to the point to your last save. In terms of DICOM import, the race station system is probably one of the best out there in the market in terms of DICOM conformance. I mean, every system has a DICOM conformance statement. However, this system really, I think, is very compatible with other DICOM. So basically, things that you can export from other systems. For example, I was able to take a plan out of that was exported from Eclipse and take it into RayStation and easily sort of import it and open it, which in our current system right now, it sometimes can be quite a bit of a challenge. And this just goes to show your interface. It's fairly straightforward. I think it's fairly intuitive and shows you sort of the different types of DICOM objects that you're looking at. And the next thing is contouring. So contouring is a big part of what radiation oncology field does. As you can see, it's a much more it's a more complicated interface. I would say it has a lot more tools, but it's a lot more powerful. So in Pinnacle, that we can the objects are in 3D. However, all the contours are done on axial slices. You cannot contour on sagittal or coronal slices. In RayStation, you will be able to do, you have a choice of doing either 2D or 3D contouring. So I think that would benefit us in the sense that, all of us have suffered through the Christmas tree contours that we don't know what to do when we're trying to optimize a plant. So, so that's one of the things, but it has the other features. Again, it's very different from what we're used to, but it's definitely a much more powerful tool. This one shows you the ROI algebra. So for those of us who actually need to generate, an expanded target. So if you want to generate your PTV from your CTV, for example, or if you want to generate a ring, of voice structures. This has a lot more options for algebra. Again, it's a little bit more complicated, but it has a lot more options. And also this part is also scriptable and scriptable and can be automated. So that's about contouring. Model-based segmentation is also part of contouring. This is, I think, actually fairly similar compared to what we're used to. The interface obviously looks different, but the functions are fairly similar. Essentially, you can drop a model of a bladder or whatnot, and you can kind of basically let it warp into the tongue contour that you like. This is not too different. What I like to sort of show you is the next one is called the atlas-based segmentation. And what this means is that we can actually build our own atlas. So every institution may have a different protocol in terms of how you contour a certain organ or certain targets or whatnot. And this would provide the opportunity for us to build our own atlas. So we can, have 5 cases, 10 cases that the contours that we like to see. And then this would be, this tool will let us sort of generate automated contours based on the way that we like to see them. And the nice thing about that is also you can keep adding things to the atlas. So you can kind of keep developing that. And the software will keep learning that. So that was contouring, and now it comes to optimization. I just wanted to show you sort of what the interface looks like. And everything is going to be sort of one page with compared to what we're used to now. You kind of have to flip back and forth. This is going to be on one page. It's a busier page, obviously, but it's going to be one page. So this is where, this is where the dose volume histogram is, and this is where your optimization objectives are. And you have your settings, and you can kind of see how your dose distribution changes in the process of optimization. This shows you for those of you actually look at the optimization progress, I think mostly physicists, this shows you the progress, and these are the buttons that you would press in the process of plan optimization. And the next slide, I'm just going to show a quick demo, about 2 minutes, to sort of show you what it looks like. So the two features, the deformable image registration, which is an important feature of this platform, this software, and also plan optimization. So if you just bear with me, sorry, skip forward, sorry. So actually the video is a little bit, you know what, maybe we'll come back to the video for those who are interested. I'll skip ahead to the plan evaluation. So the plan evaluation, after you have a plan that's optimized, then we would like to evaluate the plan. Again, this is the layout of the plan evaluation. Everything's on one page. And the layouts can be, there's a few choices of how you would look at your plan. So for example, here you can actually show 2 different plans at the same time. You can even see their differences. There's different ways to kind of visualize it. And this is obviously the dose distribution. This is the dose distribution, and this is the DVH, and this is the planning goals. So this is basically, you put in your goals of your what you would like to achieve, and this will tell you whether you achieve the goals or not. I want to focus, hone in a little bit on the clinical goals. This is what most of our used to, that in Pinnacle, we don't really have this feature in the version that we have. So what we do currently is we basically write scripts to, and they would tell us yes or no, does it pass, does it fail, right? So we have scripts for all kinds of dose objectives, all kinds of protocols. So in RayStation, there's no longer a need for that. Instead, we would just build templates, and then we can load a template, say for this technique or for this protocol, and it would show us whether it passed or it fails, or I think there's another color, orange, that's in between the green and the red. And then at the same time, if you have any plans that's more specialized, that's different from your standard protocol, then you can actually change the numbers. So, instead of having to edit your script, obviously you can change your goals here. And I remember the planners I used to work with, and certainly have told me that it's almost sometimes a bit therapeutic to see all the green check marks. So those were all the features that not all the features, but some of the features that we're used to, but I think it's improvement than what we're used to. For the next couple of slides, I would like to show you what some of the new features. There's a lot of new features, but some of the new features I think that is relevant to our big picture. So here is, when you're evaluating the plans, you can actually calculate the plan on additional data sets. So that includes if you have, for example, a new CT sim or the daily cone beam images. So this actually has, so you would be able to actually see what the dose looks like calculated on a new different data set. And it has the functions to deform and sum the dose as well. And so going from evaluating on a different data set, so once you have that, then you can actually do something called the dose tracking, which is essentially, this is for each fraction, this is your planned dose, and this would be your estimated delivered dose based on the dose calculated on the cone beam CT of that fraction. And then, and it has a sort of a tailored workspace for us to be able to reconstruct the dose and also sum the dose or accumulate the dose and then evaluate that. I mean, again, when you ask vendors, you don't always end up with the best example. I don't know how frequently we're going to explain those to the bladder, but the idea is here. I just wanted to show sort of the concept and what the platform is able to do. So that was sort of the a glimpse into what the new system would look like with some of the features. I'd like to circle back to what we said about the renewed emphasis on radiotherapy quality. So, I think you're all used to Stephen's on target with minimum variation concept. I just like to show here with a more clinical sort of example. There was a paper quite a few years ago, I think, that really just looked at clinical trials. And it showed that when they did a meta-analysis, they actually showed that patients with radiotherapy deviations actually were associated with a much more significant increased risk of death compared to those without deviation. So I think that's a more sort of, hopefully a more intuitive or more clinical example of or a demonstration of the importance of quality. So now, all those things sound very great. I hope by this point you're as excited as I am about this new system. However, it's a change. It's a very significant change, and we all have our feelings towards change. So here I would like to kind of remind us of a few things. As sort of Stephen said, we had a lot of evolution of technology from back in 1970s to in the last 50 years. I have not been around for that long, but the techniques certainly have evolved significantly from using the simulator and going to conformal to IMRT and VMAT and whatnot. We have progressed significantly in terms of motion management. We have progressed also in the availability of imaging modalities. What I like to say is that, or remind us, is that as you've seen, we cannot avoid change. Change is inevitable, and we actually live through change all the time. And more importantly, I think we would all agree that we have grown significantly through all the changes. And in fact, at this program, we have really excelled at all the changes that we've gone through. So, I think I would really like to, through all this project, I think it's fairly predictable, and I've certainly done this myself, that, I've said things like, there was that button that I used to press to do this, and I just can't find that. I wish they would have that. Or this is how I used to do this in Pinnacle. Okay, I used to do it. There's many variations of things, and I think all of us will say something similar to that. And I really hope that we will never come to say this sentence, but I really hope not. So what I want to sort of remind us is that I want to kind of deviate a little bit. And if we take a look at this, this was the old streetcar. I hope you all remember. In fact, this was one of the standoff parties that TTC did when they painted the old streetcar nicely. I think sometimes, maybe this could be a bit analogous of how we feel about our current treatment planning system. And I know sometimes it feels like we're actually using a system like this. Regardless, we think we're moving to something that's newer and bigger and more powerful and better. What I would like to point out is that, when this project was actually done, the new streetcar actually had to go through a lot of retrofit in order to be able to run on the old track. It cost a lot of money, effort. There were also delays in delivery. I'm not going to comment on that. But I think what I want to say is we're not going to implement a streetcar replacement project here. What I hope that we could do is that every time we want to say something like this, we think a little bit and really circle back to think, we were pressing that button to do something. We had a goal, right? We're not just pressing that button. We did things that way because we had a goal. So I hope that we could try to ask ourselves a different question, is that instead of saying, I wish I had that, or I'm used to that, where's that, is what is the goal? What are we trying to achieve here? Think about what we're trying to achieve, and we will learn a different way of doing things. So I think, I would propose that maybe we could have a jar and then we can, because the inflation, the nickel is not going to be enough. So we're going to have to put in $1 for every time we do that. And then at the end of the project, maybe we can donate that to a charity of our choice. So what to expect? Like I said, the system is designed differently. So the user experience will be different. So it's just going to be different. So that's the change. And in addition, the new system is fast, it's new, it's powerful, it has a lot more functionalities. So basically what we need to do is we need to be prepared to learn new ways to achieve our usual goals. On top of that, it will also enable us to do things that was not possible in the old system. So we will be able to do a lot more new things. So, and to that point, I want to briefly touch upon the project implementation structure. So we will have, at the core, we have the implementation committee. I will be chairing that committee. This committee will execute and oversee the implementation of the treatment planning system via the project charter. So it is accountable to the project oversight committee. And it's responsible for the timely execution of the project plan and aligning the activities of these committees. And they're called the coordinating committees. So basically, it's the go-between, and it's the one that's really responsible for the entire project. And this committee will also communicate tasks and timelines to the oversight, up to the oversight committee, and also to the coordinating committee. This committee is an executive committee. It's responsible for ensuring project charter compliance, resource management, and resolution of any issues that's escalated. And this committee also reviews and approves changes to the project charter. The coordinating committees here are accountable to the implementation committee, and it's responsible for defining tasks and timelines for the associated work groups, and it also maintains basically the work group progress. So that's basically a brief introduction to the structure of the implementation. And this is my second last slide. What I would like to talk about is the mindset. So I would like to talk about what we like, where we would like our mindset to be. I think we would like to build on our current success. We have achieved a huge amount of success in our program using the old platform. We're changing the platform, but we're going to keep what we have learned in building our past and current success. And you've already seen, I don't need to enumerate the number of success that we have. At the same time, we would like to, in this implementation, we would like to examine the current practice for improvement opportunities. There are always opportunities for improvement. And we would like to make things more streamlined. Like Stephen said, because of the old system, some of the limitations, we've had to do a lot of patchwork. This is an opportunity for us to sort of not having to do that and examine so many aspects. These are just some of the bubbles that come to mind. There's a lot more. And the important thing to remember, I think, is that everyone who is involved in making or executing or delivering a treatment, and anyone who touches a radiation treatment plan will be involved in this implementation. And we are all in this together to achieve our collective success. And it's important to always keep in mind that we're doing this, the why we're doing this, the reason we're doing this. And we're really doing this to make things better for our patients. So it's going to be new, it's going to be different, but I think I'm confident that this change will be a success. This is my last slide. This is just to say to state the next communication point. So the next communication will be to the radiation treatment program specifically, because we will have, again, a lot more technical details. It will be done after the next milestone, as the next milestone will be basically the delivery and installation of the product. And the timeline for that at this point is about 8 to 14 weeks. And the next communication, we will present to you, like Stephen mentioned, a detailed project charter and implementation plan. The committees and the working group membership, who will be in those committees and working groups. We will communicate a protocol on project progress communication, so a communication protocol, and a lot more. So So basically, until that time and after that time, please reach out to Stephen or me or your team leads, whoever you feel comfortable talking to. We would love to hear everyone's feedback early. So with that, I would like to wrap up this presentation and thank you for your attention, and we welcome any questions.
Thanks, Beibei. Any questions?